Yo, what's going on, guys? And today, of course, we're going to be talking about the trade that just broke. Patrick Baldwin is going to San Antonio. He is in his third season in the NBA. He had his fourth year option decline, so he will be a free agent, which means San Antonio might just cut him, or they will keep him, and if it all works out, they'll re-sign him to a cheap deal, similar to like Jalen Smith did when the Suns cut him, and then the Pacers picked him up and made him a reclamation project. But yeah, let's talk about it because I really do believe that this is a guy who I think do obviously the athleticism is what got zapped when he had those ankle injuries. And if you guys don't remember, coming out of high school, he's like the top recruit, ended up going to Milwaukee because his dad was coaching there. And I thought that was always very interesting as a result, due to the fact that he was a guy that, to me, had the shooting ability to make it in the NBA. I always thought he was going to be a guy who had a decent floor as a role player because of his shooting ability. And the interesting thing about his time in Washington, if you guys weren't paying attention, was that he ended up being someone that was, the best way to put it, went from being like a small forward, power forward in college to being a kind of a power forward center at times. Like, I buy his shot in college and in the NBA that I thought he was going to be able to be a good shooter due to his rhythm, balance, release, and just a high release point, because I just don't think that was going to be a problem. I knew, especially due to his agility, that guarding anyone was going to be a problem, especially in the wide open spaces the NBA provides, that I think he was going to be a good enough shooter to stick around the league as a specialist. But I obviously assumed that it was going to be hard for him to develop into an impact guy. So for me, at this point, Steve Novak is the type of guy that I would try to do uh, as a comparison, as a power forward, due to the fact that I know some people were hoping that he could be like a Cam Johnson type, come in and generate 3-point shots to space the floor for his teammates. And I think Johnson is way better than Baldwin, but Baldwin's still a guy worth taking the flyer. As I said, if you guys want to dive deep into his stats, so far this season, he in 405 minutes a night, about 17. He's 22. So in about 405 minutes a night for the Wizards, all right? He has played primarily power forward and center. Yes, 94% of his minutes have been at the power forward position, 6% have been at the center position. Last year, he played 11% of his minutes at the small forward position, and he was terrible. He played 47% of his minutes at the center position, and that was his second worst, and then his most efficient was his 43% at the power forward position, which in comparison, when he was in Golden State, they were playing him mainly at the small forward position, and then 52% of the time, and then power forward position 42%. So he's clearly a power forward, and he's a guy who defensively, the numbers aren't the greatest, but you know what's crazy is defensively, points per possession. He This year he's in the 58th percentile as a center, and he was just in the general, he's the 58th percentile, as there's not enough minutes this year for his center position. And he's like doing really badly. The Wizards are doing really badly. But last year, when he was the power forward, he was in the 70th percentile, actually playing like regular minutes for them. And this season, we mentioned he's only playing 4.6 minutes a night. Last year, he played 38. He's a guy this season shooting 51% from the field, which, albeit in very limited minutes, he's still someone that I think has the skill. If they were to keep him, the depth chart for the San Antonio Spurs actually shows that someone like him could be valuable, and then you just sign him to like a really cheap 3-year deal with like guaranteed dates. So if you do want to move on from him, or like non-guaranteed, so it's very easy. But for a team that Chris Paul, De'Aaron Fox, Devin Vassell, Harrison Barnes, and Victor Wembanyama are the starters, and then you have like Keldon Johnson, Steph Castle, and as the main and Keldon Johnson as the main guys off the bench, Jeremy Sohan, Steph Castle, Keldon Johnson's the three guys. I really think that a guy like Pat Baldwin fits in there. very well. I know Jordan McLaughlin, Sandro, Blake Wisely, Julian Champagny, Malachi Branham, Riley Minix, and Charles Bassey, and Harrison Ingram, and David Duke are all there. But I just think Pat Baldwin is in a position to actually be able to contribute to a team that most people wouldn't have initially thought that he would have been someone that they would have sought after. I mean, I could be 100% wrong about this and that they just go ahead and cut him because they just wanted a cheap salary to cut. That's always a possibility, but I do believe that someone like him deserves at least the mentioning of what he could be, because let's be honest, what do you have to lose if you're San Antonio? Again, I've said it before, you're trying to go all in on Victor Wembanyama, and Pat Baldwin works as a power forward next to Victor Wembanyama or with the second unit. You just need guys who can help space the floor, who don't need the ball in their hand. And I think Pat Baldwin, surprisingly enough, fits that mold. And that's where I'm gonna hear your guys' opinion. If you're a fan of Pat Baldwin, do you guys like this move, or are you guys hesitant in terms of its impact? Because to me, I think this is a move that, like, if you're just looking at it from like a fan, or like just someone who reads the stats, you're obviously going to look at this and be like, oh, this is just like not really that big of a move. And I think you'd be wrong. Really, I think you would be, because I think Pat Baldwin, the shooting ability is there. I think anybody who follows basketball knows it and would say that obviously being on the Warriors, that didn't help, because the Warriors were a team that a lot of people would have thought that they weren't going to give him the opportunity he needed to see the field regularly. And I get that. I mean, to me, I feel if he had followed Pat Baldwin so far, he just was a guy that even in the Wizards, he wasn't getting minutes. So I know it's hard to believe that, oh, if he was on a different team, maybe it'll get better. But I think him being on a team like the Wizards, I mean, not the Wizards, going from a team from the Wizards to the Spurs will, yeah, definitely help him put up a better stat. So I don't know. I want to hear your guys' thoughts down below in the comment section, if you guys agree with me, or if you guys think that he's just someone that isn't going to make much of an impact. I think you basically got someone that, hey, if you can just prove that he can scale up his play, I think you have someone that you shouldn't be afraid